garbage disposal broke. This has been a couple of houses ago, but our garbage disposal just died. And the problem with the garbage disposal garbage disposal is one of those modern conveniences that if you don't have it, it's like, oh, it'd be nice, but it's not that big a deal. But once you have it, you cannot go back. Like, this is not a thing we can revert. Our garbage disposal died, and because the way that everything works, like the dishwasher drains through the garbage disposal, and the sink is there, and so like when the garbage disposal doesn't work, you have to be really careful. Change your habits. You have to take care of it. So the garbage disposal died, and we really did not have any money because we had a bunch of other stuff break, but we have to fix it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this. So I don't know how to do it, but I can watch YouTube, right? And that's always worked before. So I watch the YouTube videos. I can do this. I order a garbage disposal. I find a great deal on one online. It's the right horsepower, right size, but it's much cheaper, so I'll order it. So it's like 3 days that we go without the garbage disposal. And it finally comes in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to work on this. It's Thursday. So I know how to do this, very confident. Get under the sink. And the sink, this is an old house, and the cabinet under the sink is divided. So it's not like it's just two open doors. And the space to get through is about this wide, right? So I'm sideways and get in and turn and wedge my ribs in so that I can deal with this. And I'm under there, and I take the garbage disposal down. It doesn't go the way YouTube says it will, but it comes down, and that takes a little while because I don't know what I'm doing, and it doesn't work like YouTube says. I'm under there for an hour, let's say. And if you've never dealt with a garbage disposal, just imagine being wedged in with your arms up there, because you have to put your arms to go first and then slide in, and they got your arms there. And you're holding this thing above your face, and you're trying to take it down. So I'm laying on my back, my legs are sticking out to the island, I'm wedged in the cabinet, I've got this thing down. And it comes out, and I'm like, cool. And then I'll look for the plug, and there's no plug. Because the people that flipped this house decided, we don't want a plug. They hardwired it to the house. So I've got this thing laying on the ground, and now I've got to get out, turn over, wedge myself back in the other way so I can knock out drywall under the sink and figure out where this is. And then I got to disconnect this. And I'm watching YouTube videos under the sink because I'm not an electrician. I don't know what I'm doing. So I get out, I figure out what's going on, I shut the power off to this area so nobody can use the kitchen. I go to Home Depot, I buy all the stuff that I need to do it. I come back, I learn how to do this while under the sink. Finally, a few hours later, I'm done. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to install the disposal. So I get out again, which is the whole process. I unpack it, I get under there, and I'm holding it above my face, laying on my back, trying to install this garbage disposal, and nothing works. Like, it, not like YouTube says it's going to be. I don't understand what's going on. So I don't know how long you've laid on the ground wedged into something with 30 pounds over your face, or however much it weighs. It felt like 100 pounds after a while. Over your face, doing this for just like hours, trying to figure out why it's not working. And there comes a point, it's the end of the day, I've been under the sink all day, I'm very angry, and I have to stop. So I stop and I get out, no kitchen for that night, no dishwasher again for the fourth day, and no sink. So get up the next morning and I get started again, and it's more of this under there. And I'm laying under there watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out why this won't work, can't work. Look at this thing, getting in, getting out. It's 2 days of this. And finally, I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm under the sink, wedged under the sink, and I'm just giving up on getting out at this point. And I'm calling plumbers while wedged under the sink. And nobody can get there today. It's Friday. But they can come on Saturday, or they can come on Monday, and there is a weekend charge for Saturday. And I get out and I talk to Brett, and I'm like, they can come on Monday, or we can pay extra for them to come on Saturday. And of course, the logical thing is to wait. But I could tell by the look on her face, we are not doing the logical thing. It's already been a week. We got little kids. Nobody's been able to wash dishes. We're doing stuff in the tub. It's not working. So I call this guy. And he comes out, and first of all, like, he assumes I'm an idiot because everything sounds like I'm an idiot. He's not. He knows what he's doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, this is really easy. I don't know why I'm coming out here on a Saturday to do this, but I'm really happy to charge you. And he gets under there, and he looks at it, and he says, well, I know why it won't work. You bought the wrong garbage disposal. The hardware is not right. It's a different brand. The hardware is not right. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? He said, well, you have to go buy a new one because the hardware didn't come with it. So he goes to the store, and I don't know what he's doing because he takes a lot longer to go to the store than I do. And he's getting all the stuff, and he comes back, and he puts that garbage disposal in, just like that. But then he doesn't like my outlet. And so he's under there and he's like, no, you didn't do this right. So he changes out the outlet. I'm like, okay, whatever, just get it done. So I feel about this tall. I am just miserable and defeated, and my ribs hurt, and my back hurts, and I have to apologize to everybody because I was really angry. And he gets out and he gives me the bill, and I paid for a second garbage disposal. I paid for him to drive to the store. I paid for him to come out on the weekend. I paid for him to do electrical work and all this and take my other stuff out. And it works out to about 3 times the amount it would have been if I just called on Tuesday or Monday. And then I can't return the garbage disposal because, of course, the website that I bought it from has a restocking fee and the thing weighs so much. And so it ended up costing altogether 3 times or so what it would have cost if I just called and asked for help in the first place. I've since replaced garbage disposals, and now that I'm knowing what I'm doing, I'm just going to tell you it's a lot easier now. But at that point, it was a disaster. Doing things alone is cheaper in the beginning, but it takes longer and costs you more in the end. When you decide, I'm just going to go it alone. It always starts off cheaper, but usually works out to cost you a lot more and take a lot more effort from you in the end. We're going through this idea of shoulders, and the idea of the shoulder is room on the road for things to go wrong, right? You can have a flat, you can break down without having to park on the road and have a disaster. It gives you room to breathe. And spiritually, the way we're talking about the shoulder is attitudes, habits, and behaviors that make it easier for you to obey Jesus. He's going to tell you to do something, you're going to have a hard time doing it, you're going to swerve, and you're going to go off the road, unless you have things in place that put you in a position to serve Jesus better. We talked about this with money, that when your attitude with money is right, when Jesus asks you to do something that's difficult with money, it's easier to obey. You've got more room to obey because your attitude toward him is right. Whenever your habits about money are the way they need to be, then you actually have the ability to do what Jesus says you to do with your money. We talked about sharing the gospel and how Jesus laid out this framework of be the light, not share the light, but be the light in the world, allow people to see Jesus work in you, and then when you share the gospel, you have room to obey. And this is our last week. We're going to go to Elijah next week, but this is our last week, and what I want to talk to you about is the purpose of the church and what we are here for and what we're supposed to do with one another. And the thing is, if we do things alone, it's cheaper and easier. It costs us less. It's less painful at the beginning, but it's always more expensive at the end. But when we do things together, it costs more up front. But in the end, things always work out better for us. And we'll be looking at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and we're not looking at friendship, we're not looking at social interaction, but we're looking at the purpose of the church, the function of the church in giving us room to swerve, in giving us room that we can deal with things in a way that keeps us on the road. And that is the church functioning as a shoulder for us, that we have each other to help. We're going to look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. We're going to go through verses 11 through 15 and just talk about this. But I want you to understand that what we're talking about is what Jesus wants out of us towards each other. So let's just read through. Let's start in verse 11 and go through this. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, starting in verse 11, it says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you're doing." He says, okay, this is what I want from you. There's a whole section preceding this, but if I got all the context I wanted to, I'd just preach the whole book. So I'm going to start right here with therefore. He says, if all these other things are true, which we're not talking about today, then this is what you need to do for one another. Encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Now, encourage, and I get that I'm a pastor and I get that I'm a professional studier of the Bible, and there are going to be things I care about that you don't care about, right? I get that. There's that. But this is important, and I want you to get it. When it comes to translation, it's really hard to translate. Not just because you got to know another language, but because there's no one-to-one exchange on any word. Let's just take the word push, for example. Word push. That's a simple word, right? Nobody would argue about that word. It's a simple word. But the word push means something very different if you're a woman in labor than it does if you're a drunk guy in a fight, right? Those are two very different things. The word push means something different if you're trying to watch TV than it does. And you say, well, it's a simple word, but it can mean a bunch of different things, and it's determined by its context. So push has a lot of stuff in it. If you were to translate the word push as shove, it works in the bar fight. But if you say the mother shoved the baby, right, that means something very different. You don't shove a newborn. What are you doing? Well, I was just pushing. It's the same word. And so these things can be different. And so sometimes I talk to you about words and I say, this word means this, and I don't want you to think, well, this means this is a bad translation because they didn't do this. Translators have to decide, am I going to say everything that this word is trying to say, or am I just going to say the translation of the word and let you figure it out? And they have to do that. And that doesn't mean it's a bad translation. I don't want you to doubt your Bible, but I want you to understand the limitations of translation. This word encourage, you read this word encourage and you're like, oh, that means say you're doing a good job. If I say you're doing a good job, keep going. Don't worry, your kid's not especially terrible. Every kid acts that way at this age. Like you say those things, you have checked the box on encourage. But this word encourage, what Paul wants us to do and what he does in this entire passage is he uses words that are bigger than just their container. And so I don't want you to doubt the Bible when I say these things or doubt your translation. I just want you to understand it's really hard and they did a good job, but they were working under constraints. And this is one of the reasons having multiple translations is really important, because you can look at this and you can say, what did this person say about this word? And what did this person say about this word? And you get a high def view of what it actually says. So I'm going to explain things to you, and I do this all the time, but I just want you to understand, I don't ever want you to think that because I said this is what this word means or this doesn't capture everything, that you doubt your Bible and think, I can only do this if Ben explains it to me. I just want you to understand what's going on. This word encourage is a word that's bigger than its container, because when I think I encourage, I think, hey, you're doing a good job, move on. But the picture that Paul is using here is of somebody that gets in and works alongside you. It's someone that lends you their strength. And I've been trying to think about the best way to explain this idea, what he wants out of us here. And the best thing I can think of is a labor and delivery nurse. Like Britt had C-sections, so we never did she never did that whole labor process, and I never watched it, okay? But she was a labor and delivery nurse for a long time, I don't think like 15 years, and I heard all these stories, and I was around it, and I could see it. And what I think of whenever you get to this word encourage is a labor and delivery nurse. Because what the labor and delivery nurse does is she is with you during the entire process. She's not in the middle of it, but she's right there with you. She's got some perspective on it and can see what's going on and say, I know this feels like the end of the world. I know this feels like this is never going to end, but it is. This is what's happening. This is how this is going to work. She does things like Britt would talk about these things they did with towels and blankets and stuff where they roll it up and then the mom would be wrapped around one end and the nurse would be wrapped around the other end. And they literally lend their strength. Like they allow them to pull against one another so that even though the mom can't have anybody else push for her, nobody else can go through this process for her, the nurse is able to actually contribute to what's going on and allow her to lend strength. And when you think about the doctor, and not to insult doctors in the room, but the doctor comes in and says, call me when you're ready, right? And I'll come back, but you're going to do this on your own unless there's a problem and the doctor gets involved. But the nurse is with you every step of the way to help you, to give perspective, to give encouragement, to help you get along as you do something that you have to do by yourself. And this word encouragement, when he says, therefore encourage one another, is more like the labor and delivery nurse than is the doctor. In the scenario, I'm usually like the doctor, right? You call me at the onset of the problem and I show up and say, this is what you need to do, this is how it's going to work, call me if you need me. And when major things happen, I come alongside and help you, right? And then the doctor sends the bill. That's the way. I don't send a bill, but that's how it works. You do all of that. But the nurse is with you the whole time as you do this. And that's what he's saying. This whole passage is not to the pastors, but to the church, which is why he says, encourage one another. This is the work of the church, not the work of the pastor. And he says, your role is to be beside each other, to encourage one another, to lend each other your strength as you go through the things that you go through. And this whole process of being together, of adding your strength to one another, helps you through this. But he also says this, do this just as you're already doing it. He's telling them, you're already doing a good job at this, just don't stop. Now, why would he say that? Why would you say to somebody, you're doing a good job, do this? Even though you're already doing it, just do this. Some of you who were here at the beginning talk about this kind of concept a lot. You were here at the beginning, and the way that it worked at the beginning was you didn't have a place to meet. So you all had to get together 2 hours before church, and you had to make it work. You had to set up. You go to the fairgrounds. You had to shovel goat poop. You had to do all that stuff. You all had teenagers together at the same time, so you were all working with a teen group. And it built this camaraderie, and it built this togetherness that was forced by circumstance. But then when you have a building and you're not here 2 hours early to set up, and then when your kids move out, you don't have that anymore because you're not forced by your circumstances to do things together anymore. And now you look back and you say, why aren't we together anymore? I miss that. I want that to happen. I want that relationship. And Paul is saying the same thing. The church at Thessalonica, the way that this church started is Paul came in, Paul preached, people were saved. It seems like there were already some believers there and they kind of came together, but then Paul got ran out of town. And when the people came to persecute Paul, they didn't find the Paul, so they started persecuting the church. Specifically, a guy named Jason that they picked up. And he was under trial. He was being persecuted. And so what happened is the church is under this circumstance that forces them together. And because of that, they're together. They lend each other help. This guy's in jail right now, so the family's going to take care of his wife and kids. The church is going to take care of his wife and kids. This guy's struggling with his business, so everybody's going to come alongside him and help him. And circumstances force them to be the church to one another. But when that pressure eases off, there's no circumstances forcing you to do that anymore, you stop. Because you never did it on purpose in the first place, circumstances forced you into it. And the thing is, we'll go through situations as a church where we're forced together. Somebody gets cancer, somebody's having a baby, somebody's losing their house. We get forced together, and the circumstances force us to stand alongside one another and help each other, to lend strength. But when those circumstances are over, we stop. And what Paul is saying, the thing you're doing now is good. But there will come a point when your circumstances no longer force you to do that, and you have to do it not because of circumstances, but by choice. And what I want you to do is don't stop just because the circumstances go away, but continue that even though circumstances are gone. Therefore, encourage one another, build one another up, just as you are doing. Pastors are only a part of this in as much as they are part of the church. But this is instructions to the church, to one another, each other. Verse 12, he says this, we ask you, brothers, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, to esteem them very highly in love because of their work. He says there are some of you that are going to step up and take more responsibility. And when he says those who labor among you, this is not pastor language, okay? There are other places where it does use pastor language like this. This is just people who step up and take more responsibility. This is people who step up and lead. So this could be pastors, right? It can refer to pastors. It can refer to ministry leaders. It can refer to deacons. It can refer to anyone who steps up and says, I'll take responsibility for that. Those who labor among you and are over you and admonish you. And as part of that responsibility, they call you to behave differently. They push you to behave differently. They should be esteemed very highly in love because of their work. I want you to notice what Paul is doing here. Does Paul order you to treat leaders this way? No. He demonstrates the kind of leaderships that a Christian leader should have. He asks, he calls, he invites you to respond this way to one another. But why does he do this? Why does he go from encourage one another, lend each other strength, to here's your leaders, take care of them? It's because those people who step up and do more work are more susceptible to criticism. They're more susceptible to having to take responsibility for things when they go wrong. They're more susceptible to those things. And when other people step up and take more responsibility for encouragement, for leadership, the way they should do it is not by lording it over you. They should not do it by exerting authority and say, you do this, it's my way or the highway. I don't really like that phrase, but it's my way or the highway kind of thing. Instead, they should be stepping up and leading it as an example, as calling alongside you. And your responsibility is to make things easier on them, to make it easier on them to lead, to call them, to respect them, not to flatter them, but to show honor to them for the work that they're doing so that they're able to continue doing it. Because what happens is people step up to lead. People step up to try to make the work of the church happen. And let's take me out of it, but somebody else steps up. And what happens is everybody complains about how they do it. Nobody likes how it's done. You go up and you offer advice, which is always criticism. And they take it and they take it and they take it and they take it. And if nobody appreciates the work that's doing, you know what happens? They stop doing it. And if you have a church with a culture of coming after people and criticizing people and not expressing gratitude to the people who are stepping up and giving more, nobody else wants to do it either because they just watched how that person got treated. And so what happens is everybody is waiting on somebody to step up in one another first. So some people step up in one another first. And then everybody throws rocks at them because they're not one anothering the way that you want it done. And then they quit. And you want to know who leads at that point? The guy that you pay. And you want to know what happens to him when he's got a culture of criticism and he's got a culture of, I'm just going to do this because I'm getting paid to do it and nobody appreciates it and there's no gratitude. You know what he does? He moves on to somewhere else. I'm not complaining about this church at all. I'm reading from the text, okay? Y'all are super. But what I am saying is Paul says you're already doing these things, but you're doing them because of your circumstances, and you need to do them on purpose. That you need to look to those who step up. You need to look to those who lead. You need to look to those who take more responsibility and encourage them in the work they're doing. Thank them for the work that they're doing, so that they are able to continue doing it. Because one day your turn to step up is going to come. And if you want it to be a pleasant experience, maybe make it a pleasant experience for everybody else. If a leader is domineering, they're controlling, they don't deserve any of this. But if a leader is leading the way that Jesus would have them to, then you as a church have a responsibility to make it easier for them to continue to lead. You are already doing this. Keep doing it. Let's go to verse 14. Nope, the rest of verse 13. Come on, Coop. Let's hit that next slide. He says this, be at peace among yourselves. Get along. You don't have to like everybody. You know, some people are going to rub you the wrong way. Just being nice, they're going to rub you the wrong way. They're going to say good morning to you, and it feels like an insult because your personalities just don't work. You don't jive. It's okay that not everybody in this church is your favorite person in the world. It is not okay for you to not show love and to work to be at peace with them anyway. It's not okay. That if this church is going to function as a body, we have to be at peace with one another. We have to do the work. And working to get along does not mean getting along if it comes naturally. Work is effort. Work to get along. Be at peace among yourselves. You don't have to like everybody, but you do have to love everybody. Show love. You got a disagreement with somebody, work it out or get over it. One or the other. And here's the thing. If you can get over it, then get over it. Right? If this is just a slight, we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to say things that we're not supposed to, especially if we're working this closely with one another, as he says to. If we're working this closely together, I'm going to have a bad day and I'm going to offend you, right? I get in trouble at the house because when I get a sunburn, and I get sunburns all the time, if I get a sunburn, they say grumpy, right? I get grumpy, I have a sunburn. And you know what I do when that happens? I know this is going to come, so I shut my mouth. I just don't say anything. I'm like, Dad's grumpy. He's not saying anything. Well, what am I supposed to do? Like, do you want me to say what I'm thinking right now, or do you want me to not say anything? And I don't get credit for it either way, but, it's the cross that I bear. But there are going to be times that I just don't feel good, or I'm grumpy, or I'm having a day, and I'm going to make you mad. It's coming if it hasn't already happened yet. Just prepare yourself for it. That's going to happen. But when that happens, You get to decide, is this something that's really worth carrying, or can I just be at peace with this person? Say, you know what? I have bad days. They're having a bad day. I'm going to let it go. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes there are things that you can't let go. And your responsibility then is a responsibility to go to them and talk to them and work it out. How do you know when it's something you can let go and when it's something that you have to talk about? Well, if it's been 3 years and you're still worked up about it, you're not getting over it. If you can go on with a couple of weeks, a couple of days, however long it is, and you're still upset about this, you clearly can't let it go and you have to talk about it. If you've got something you're mad at somebody else that happened a month ago, you need to talk to them about it because you are not at peace with that person and they may not even know it. But if we're going to continue to function as a church that can come alongside each other, that can roll up that blanket and help each other with the process that only we can do, we have to be at peace with one another. Be at peace as a church. Either get over it or work it out. Those are your only two options. Now let's go to verse 14. He says this, we urge you, brothers, this is not command, but urge, push, call. This is the example he's trying to set as a leader. Brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help with the weak, and be patient with them all. He says at some point, everybody in your church is going to be one of three things. They're not going to do what they're supposed to do. They are going to be weak because of their circumstances, or they're going to be immature. And you need to prepare yourself for that because it's going to happen. He says, this is the response of the church to somebody. This word idle is another one of those word pictures because the way that I've been taught is like generally what people do is they say when Paul says, if you don't work, you don't eat, that this is what this is talking about. This is lazy people. These are people that aren't working. These are people that live off the system. Admonish the idle. These are spiritual categories. That's not what it's talking about. If you want to talk about people not eating if they don't work, you can go to another passage. That's what not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who are not what they need to be doing what they need to do spiritually. The word idle that's used here is actually a military term. And so someone who is idling, someone who's doing this, is someone who is supposed to be in formation and is not. So you got the Roman military, they blow the trumpet or whatever they were doing to get everybody in line. Everybody forms up in their block, and the person who is not where they're supposed to be, who's not doing the task they're supposed to do, is idle. The person who's supposed to be on watch, who's not on watch, is idle. So he says you're going to have people in your church that are not doing what they need to do spiritually. They're not discipling each other. They're not submitting to discipleship. They're not encouraging. They're not treating their family the way they need to do. And it is your responsibility as a church, what encouragement looks like in this way, is to call them out on it, to encourage them. This is not church discipline where we have a whole church meeting and we vote on this person. That's not what this is. This is you know what's going on, and you have the kind of relationship where you can go to somebody and say, hey man, you need to stop, or you need to start. Or you go to them and say, look, I know that you're not going to want to hear this, but what you're doing right now is dangerous for you. It's not good for you, and I love you, and I want more for you because of that. So you need to start doing this. The idle is not somebody who's just lazy in their life, but somebody who has something they're supposed to be doing, have a responsibility, and they're not stepping up and doing it. Admonish the idle. Encourage the faint-hearted. This is not a person who's not doing what they're supposed to. This is somebody who's getting beat up spiritually, and they're struggling. And what we have a tendency to do as a church is to treat these two people the same way. We say, he's not doing his job, and she's not doing her job. The only thing is, he's just being lazy and doesn't want to do his job, and she's not doing what she needs to because her dad just died, and her husband just left, and her kids are sick, and she's having a hard time. And Paul says encouragement in this looks different to different people. For him, a couple of guys need to take him inside and say, hey man, we love you, straighten up. But for her, people need to come alongside and say, how can we help? How can we step in? How can we participate in what you're going on? Because the spiritual issues you're struggling with are not because you're immature, they're not because you're lazy, they're because the storms are all hitting at once and we want to be there for you. And then we get the weak. These are spiritually immature people. These are people that are new to the faith or have been a baby in Christ for a long time and they're just now starting to grow. And the way that you treat them is differently than the way that you treat somebody else. Because they're just getting started. They're just getting started. They're having a hard time. And what they need is encouragement and assistance, not criticism. Cooper's he's been learning to drive. He turned 16 today. It's his birthday, but he's been learning to drive. And so for 2 years, we've been in the car, right? And we're like, you took that turn too tight. You stopped too hard. You pushed too far. He is immature in his driving. And so we come alongside him and we have to call him to do it. But we do things differently, right? The first level is I'm not criticizing him for stopping too hard at that stoplight. I'm saying, maybe look where you're going before you go through the intersection, right? But he's doing pretty good. He's doing a good job. So now I'm at a different level of criticism. I say, hey, you just nearly slammed my head into that windshield. You did stop. But now that you're reaching another level of driving, maybe let's ease up on that a little bit, right? And as people have different levels of maturity, our expectations and reaction to them should be different. If you're 60 years old and you've been saved since you were 9 and you're not doing anything to serve the church, you're not doing anything that God has called to you, the response is gentle admonishment. If you're new in Christ and you're struggling, the response is encouragement and gentle pushing to the next level. Paul says, I don't want you to think that encouragement here means you treat everybody the same way, but people are treated differently based on their spiritual condition and where they are. We as a church have a responsibility for that. And you want to know something? Most of you, grown adults, and you don't want anybody telling you how to drive. I called insurance about getting Cooper some discounts, getting him on the insurance for all of that. And they're like, yeah, if you put this little tracker in your car, it'll get a discount. I'm like, well, I'll put the tracker in his car. But you're not going to tell me what you think about my driving. I know how to drive, and I don't care if there's a discount. I'm not interested in hearing your opinion, right? I'm an adult. I know how to drive. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. But what Paul says is that we as a church should be humble enough and have the kind of relationship that other people can help us. Because what happens is we drift, right? We drift. Because we've been doing this a long time, or we're getting tired, or things are difficult, and we drift off the road. And the purpose of other leaders in this community is not to just criticize us all the time, not to attack us all the time, not to be on our case all the time, but say, hey man, the road's over there. Could we get back on it? Could we slow down on this curve? Or, hey, I know this is the first time you've ever done this. This curve is going to be pretty tough for you. So if you'll ease up on this, you'll be able to make that through that curve a little bit easier. And none of us want that. None of us want anybody in our business like that. Nobody wants other people coming along and doing that. We like the encouragement. We like people saying, hey, you're doing a good job, step in. But we don't want anybody in our business helping us. We don't want anybody in our business admonishing us. But the thing is that being alone costs less. But it costs more as you go on. But being together costs you more up front, but will save you in the end. And being open and being a part of this church and allowing people to come alongside you and admonish you and encourage you is painful. Somebody's going to say, hey, you're doing a good job over here, but like I would really want to push you to do that. Or like, hey, I see what you're struggling with. I want to help you. And you're like, no, I'm perfect. I do everything right. I just admit that other stuff because of the gospel, but I'm doing everything right and I don't want you in my business. But if you can get somebody beside you that says, hey, you're starting to drift, they can stop you before you get off the road. But if you insist on driving alone, you're not going to notice the drift until you're already in the middle of a disaster. Paul says you should one another each other in this way, to be together, to help each other, to encourage each other, to not be jerks about it, but to step in and to help each other, to forgive each other so that you can continue this together. And in verse 15, he says this, see that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone. You know what? We're not all going to do this right. We're going to mess up. We're going to fail at this. So what happens when we fail at this is we forgive. We be at peace. When someone snaps at you because you're trying to encourage them or you're trying to help them, you don't take it personally, but understand this is probably the same way you would want to react. And you don't get back in there and throw it right back at them. But instead, you step back a little farther away from the chain that the dog is on. You just step back a little bit. You show grace and you encourage, because the next time it's going to be your time to be forgiven. Always seek to do good to one another and to everyone. Paul says the function of the church is to one another, each other, to help each other keep going, to provide some room on the road so that when you start swerving, you don't run off the road, but you can be there to help direct, to recorrect, to push each other back. And I just want to ask you, are you doing that? Or are you so afraid of what it's going to cost you that you've decided you're going to do it alone? You decided, you know what, it's going to be painful for people to call me out. It's going to be painful for people to encourage me. It's going to be painful for me to have to forgive. So I'm just going to pretend everything is perfect, and I'm just going to lock myself in a little bubble, and I'll help other people if they need it, but I'm going to stay in my thing, and I'm not getting out of it because it costs too much. It is too painful. And you can be right about this. It will cost you more to allow the church to be a part of your life. It will cost you more in the beginning. But if no one is there to wake you up when you go to sleep and you start to drift, if no one is there to step alongside you and say, hey, you probably need to pull it back this way, it will cost you way more in the end. Cooper doesn't like me telling him, you took that curve too tight. He doesn't like me telling him you stopped too close. But my goal is not just to criticize him all the time. He's got a car now. He's got a car and he's going to drive it and he's going to be alone. And his mama is more worried about that than I am, but he's going to do it. And my goal is not to just criticize him all the time, but to do everything that I can to help him so that when I'm not there, he still knows how to drive. And our goal as a church should not be like, how do we be hypercritical of each other? How do we make sure this is the most perfect group of people ever by just constantly criticizing each other? The goal should be loving one another enough that we want good for each other. And we think about gentle and kind ways to say, you're doing a good job, but if you don't mind me sharing, maybe if you did this, it would help. That is our role to one another. But here's what this requires. It requires permission. And if you say, you know what, I'm going to be isolated, I'm going to stay in my bubble, nobody's getting in, I'm not going to let anybody in close enough that they can help me, you'll drive alone and nobody will ever bother you about anything you're doing. And it'll feel really good. And you'll go to sleep and you'll drive off the road and you'll have a wreck and then you're calling me and you're saying, hey, Ben, this just happened. I need help. And what you could have done instead was have somebody alongside you to prevent you from ever going off on the road in the first place. Paul says you're already doing a good job at this because your circumstances push you into it. But the goal is not to do it because of circumstances, but on purpose, so that when the circumstances change, the behavior doesn't change. So I just want to ask, is anybody in your life? Does anybody know what's going on? Does anybody have permission to encourage you? One of the things that we talk about in discipleship a lot, one of our accountability groups, when we talk about this, is that when you start this relationship, you have to give each other permission to step up and say, yes, you have a right to speak into my life. Yes, you have a right to talk about things. No, you don't have to do that, because if you don't give permission, this doesn't work. And if you're withholding that permission, it will cost you less up front, but it will cost you way more in the end. We provide two ways. We got two planned ways for you to be a part of this. One is through our small groups. Our small groups, we study the Bible, and that's good. We're supposed to study the Bible. But the purpose of the small groups is not just to study the Bible. It's to know each other and be known. It's so that we're with the same group of people in a smaller setting and we can say, this is what I'm praying about, this is what I'm struggling with. And we talk about accountability a lot, we talk about correction a lot, but most of our discipleship is about encouragement and not correction. But when you have other people that can come up to you and say, what's going on? How's it going? How is this happening? I've been praying about this. This encourages you. It's like the woman in labor, having the baby, right? And the nurse comes along and says, you're doing great. I'm checking on you. Everything looks good. How are you feeling? How can I help? It's like having that support system around you. And that's the purpose of the small group. That's why I'm okay with the small group not having a Bible study every time. And somewhat we go to play putt-putt, or let's have a game night, or let's hang out and just spend time together, because the purpose is not just Bible study. It's community, so that we're there to do that. The second way that we provide for that is through our discipleship ministries, where it's a more hardcore thing, and it's 2 or 3 people of the same gender that get together and they share what's going on in their lives, and they ask for prayer about personal things, and they have somebody else that can speak into their lives. We provide that. And you want to know something? You are not required by Scripture to be involved in either of those ministries. You're not. That's just the way that we provide to be able to carry out this function. But if you're not involved in one of those ministries, you have to find something. You have to do something. You have to invite somebody else in. Because the purpose of the church is to do this to one another. Not so that you can sit here alone with your secrets that nobody else knows and listen to me talk for an hour each week. That's not the purpose. And you don't have to, I wish you would. I think it'd be good for you. We put a lot of effort into it. I get that it takes a time commitment. I get that you have to open up, but it's good for you. I wish you would do that. But if you're not going to do that, you have to find something where somebody else knows you. Because Paul said, here's all the functions of the church. Here's what you're supposed to do for one another. And if you're a part of this church, but you don't have anybody, then you're not getting the benefit of the church. And you agree with me. Like, you agree with me on this. I don't know that anybody in this room doesn't agree with me in principle on this. But agreement doesn't fix anything if you don't take a step. Jesus wants to give you a gift in this church. The gift of encouragement, the gift of help, the gift of somebody to sit in the passenger seat and say, hey, you're swinging a little wide. That's a gift. And it's a painful gift sometimes, but it's a gift. And if you will accept the gift that He's offering you, whether it's through our ministries or through something else, just get a group of people and do whatever it is. Whatever that is, if you will accept that gift, it will cost more up front, but it will cost you way less in the long run. Me being right doesn't fix anything, though, because I'm right all the time and we still got all kinds of problems. You agreeing with me doesn't fix anything. The only thing that will change this, if you take the step to allow somebody else in. And the thing is, you say, well, nobody else wants that. Here's the thing that you don't know. Almost everyone in this room is waiting on somebody else to go first. If somebody would come and talk to me, I would definitely do that. If somebody would invite me in, I would definitely do that. But I'm going to go first. Because they don't want me. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want to be in that relationship with me. They got other people, so I'm not going to go first. But if somebody comes to me, I'll do it. The thing is, everybody in the room is thinking the same thing. It's one of the reasons that Paul said you need to show honor to those that step up and go first. But if you are not willing to take your agreement and turn it into action, then nothing changes. But if you will obey the intent here, if you'll step up and follow this, you'll have some uncomfortable conversations. But your life will be better because of it. So what do? You just going to sit there and agree with me again? Like you do every week? Just sit there and agree with me? Or are you going to allow your agreement and your beliefs to become action so that something actually happens? Would you stand with me? Our Heavenly Father, we come before you, and I'm so grateful for the chance to have a church, Lord, and I'm just grateful. And I look at how most people do church and what it's used for and how people function in it, and I'm just saddened by the fact that we have taken church from being a community of people that help each other and turned it into a service we attend. But I'm so grateful for this church, Lord, that we have taken so many steps to make this not about attendance and not about observation, but about community and participation. And I ask that we would take those steps further. Lord, I know there are people in the room that want this and they're scared to give it. They're scared to step up and take it. They think people are going to reject them. And I just ask that you would give them the courage to step up and go first. I know there are people that think they don't have time for these other ministries. They've got other things going on. But I ask that they would just take a chance to find out what you have in store for them through these. And I ask, Lord, for those who are on the outside, those who say, man, I really want that, but I don't even know that I believe this whole thing. I don't even know that I'm a part of this whole thing. I ask that you would stir within them a desire, that you would raise up with them a desire to know you, to be known by you, that you would stir up in them repentance and an understanding of their guilt and their sin. And they would call out to you for forgiveness and place their faith in you so that they might be able to experience that forgiveness and that relationship with you, but also the full relationship that you've offered us through this church. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.